This is a story about my dad, Carol Schaup. 2 R's, 2 L's. That's me in the picture, the little guy. That's Dad. He's getting ready to go to work in probably 1975, somewhere in there. He was a general contractor, meaning he built houses from start to finish, managing every aspect of it, including the design. He had had several careers up to this one. He'd been a radio DJ, a guitar maker, a draftsman, a pilot. He even found time to race cars in the mid-1980s. Around 1993, he started to notice that his arms weren't moving quite right and that his walk was kind of unsteady. It wasn't until 1995 that the doctor officially diagnosed him with Parkinson's disease. One of the things that he had noticed was it was hard to pet both of the dogs at the same time. The day the doctor diagnosed him was, well, bad. The doctor said, "No more building houses. I don't want you on a ladder. I don't want you crawling under them. I don't want you lifting things. You need to retire today." So, Dad did. He went back to Cowley College in Arkansas City to earn his associate degree in airframe and power plant, which is basically how to repair and maintain small single-engine or twin-engine aircraft. I say back because he had already earned a degree in drafting in the late 1960s from there. Like everything in Dad's life, he focused on this, and he excelled. As part of the Cowley College team, he earned medals at the National Competition for Vocational Industrial Clubs of America. After graduation, he was working on getting his FAA license when the college contacted him and said, "We need somebody to fill in as a substitute teacher for the classes." Dad jumped at the chance. The instructor he was filling in for eventually left. The head of the department asked Dad if he wouldn't mind taking over. Again, Dad jumped at the chance. For the next 6 years, he taught airframe and power plant classes at the college. During this time, he also redesigned and rebuilt the entire curriculum for the program. In 2004, some legislators had the bright idea to move a bunch of community college programs to Wichita. This meant the end of those programs at the community colleges, including Dad's. Dad tried to stay with the program, driving to Wichita, but because of the Parkinson's, he couldn't make the trip. So, he retired again. But this wasn't the end of his career. He took disability retirement and also took up the hobby of stained glass. He had always admired the work of Frank Lloyd Wright, and so used his drafting skills and just his basic knowledge of how to do things and started making stained glass panels. Around this time, he also decided that the back of the house needed a deck. So, he ordered all the wood, had it delivered, and got to work. It was around this time that the Sports Car Club of America, the group that he raced in back in the 80s, moved their national runoffs to Topeka for 3 years. I drove down, picked him up, brought him back, and we went to the races for 3 years. He got to reconnect with some of the people he knew, and just his love of watching racing. In 2011, he finally decided it was time for his own workshop. After using the garage of each house as one, even the basement of their first house, Mom was also excited by the idea. But his symptoms were gradually worsening. He had to hire workers for the framing, roofing, and exterior, but he found inventive ways to complete the interior, including a custom-built drywall lift that the doctor would not approve of. Dad was always reading, learning, looking things up. He talked to his neurologist about a treatment called deep brain stimulation, or DBS. The neurologist suggested that it could work. It might help him, might reduce the symptoms. So, Dad decided, let's do it. In 2012, we went to Wichita at Via Christi Hospital. Dad underwent about 7 hours of surgery to have 2 electrodes implanted into his brain. He had to be partially awake for some of the procedures, so that they could make sure they didn't damage any part of his brain. A week after the electrodes were implanted, he went back for outpatient surgery to get the stimulators put into his chest and the wires to connect them to the electrodes put under his skin. A few months after the surgery, he had the stimulators programmed. The results were incredible. His medications could be cut back, and his tremors had lessened significantly. He upgraded to a much bigger lathe and started making bowl after bowl after bowl. He made friends with the guy that ran the local brush dump, who would give him a call and let him know when some good pieces of wood came in. In 2015, Mom and Dad celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in the same church they were married in. I had moved to Topeka in 2015, and Dad came up here from Ark City for Parkinson's therapy that December. Having Dad here was great. It also meant that I could finally adopt a dog. Buddy. Dad took special notice of the kitchen in my house. Specifically, he thought it could be done better. And after all of his years in construction, I agreed. So while I was at work, Dad planned. After I took him back to Ark City after the physical therapy program, he started working on his plans. He built an entire set of kitchen cabinets in his workshop, took them apart, packed them up, and then brought them up here. I say he brought them, but a family friend did the driving. He would stay with me for a few months at a time in 2016, working all day, taking breaks. It was kind of an alternative physical therapy for him, except this one involved his body and mind. It took an entire year, but the kitchen was finally done, for the most part. There were still a few details here and there to finish. In 2017, he was doing Parkinson's therapy again, this time in Ark City, and was having a good year. We even made it to see the solar eclipse. But that December, he had a kidney stone, again, which led to a kidney infection, that then led to sepsis. We spent several months, including the holidays, in the hospital. For him, that time is kind of a blur. He doesn't even remember opening presents. For Mom and I, we remember every day spent at the hospital. Unlike many people who get sepsis, Dad survived. He fought through it. But his condition necessitated staying at a nursing home for several months for recuperation. It was well into 2018 before he was finally able to return home. Recovery from sepsis is slow, especially for those Dad's age. Many months would pass before he even felt good enough to go out to his shop. And even then, all he could do was just kind of sit. But after a year of recovery, it was time to plan and think. He's always planning and thinking. The plan now is to add a 3-season room to the back of the house to replace the deck. Although Dad won't be the one building it, he still drew up the plans, and he's going to supervise the work. It's easy to give advice such as stay active, do things, don't give in. Those are just platitudes. Real help comes from supporting someone with Parkinson's. Help them do what they can do, when they can, for as long as they can. For Dad, Parkinson's wasn't a death sentence, but it changed his life. What he could once do is no longer possible, but he's still active. He didn't give in to it. As he said, I have Parkinson's, but it doesn't have me.